I still remember the first time I met Tim. I was in college back then, and he had this playful charm, the kind that instantly pulled you in before you even realized it. Now, before you get too excited, no, this is not the beginning of a love story. In many ways, though, Tim and I were the same. In one important way, we were not. Tim had severe cerebral palsy. I used to visit him often at his home in suburban Massachusetts. One afternoon, we were sitting at the kitchen table when I casually grabbed a bottle of water, twisted the cap open without thinking, and took a sip. Then I noticed Tim. His hands were shaking as he tried to open his own bottle. He twisted the cap once, then again. It would not budge. He paused, looked at the bottle, then quietly asked his mother to open it for him. I sat there dumbfounded, my own bottle still in my hand, realizing that something so effortless for me had just cost him his independence. Not because he wasn't capable, certainly not because he didn't try, but because that bottle was not designed for his body, for his capabilities. That moment stayed with me because it revealed something much larger. How often the world quietly asks people with disabilities to depend on others for things that should be simple. People like the elderly woman in a wheelchair straining to reach an elevator button that was apparently installed for giraffes. Everyday objects, everyday spaces, all sending the same message. This was not designed with you in mind. We've spent decades changing that story in the digital world for people with disabilities. Our websites are more accessible now, and yes, even our TikToks come with captions. But the physical world, our physical products, spaces, experiences, have largely been left behind. I have seen the same pattern emerge everywhere I worked on accessibility. At MIT, at Google, at the World Health Organization. But then I realized something that changed how I saw everything. People with disabilities are the world's largest minority group. But it's not just that. They're the only minority group that any one of us can join at any time. Spoiler alert, you do not get a warning email in advance. Most of us will arrive there completely unprepared. Globally, over 1.3 billion people live with a disability. That is not niche. That is a population more than 3 times that of the United States. And when you include older adults, caregivers, people recovering from workout injuries after trying to impress their dates, then making products and spaces more physically accessible stops being a special accommodation. Instead, it becomes the next frontier of good design. But despite all of this, for a long time, I thought physical accessibility was only the story of people with disabilities. I did not yet realize it affects all of us, including me. I do not look visibly disabled. I am 5'2". I appear healthy. But I also rely on a medical device that requires me to use an accessible bathroom on airplanes. Now, if you've ever been inside a standard airplane bathroom, you know how little space there is. It is probably smaller than the size of your closet. The door presses against your back like it is trying to keep you hostage. No, really, it has happened. But in an accessible bathroom, there is space. Space to keep my medical device sterile so that I do not end up with a bladder infection. Space to set things down in the event of air turbulence. Stress that turns an otherwise stressful situation into a somewhat manageable one. But accessible bathrooms are not available on every aircraft. In fact, I have sometimes paid more money, not for extra champagne, not for extra legroom, but to fly on an airline that has an accessible bathroom. And here is the kicker. No one looking at me would ever guess that I need that accessible bathroom. Take a look around this room for a second. You cannot tell who here benefits from accessibility. And that is the point, because making products and spaces more physically accessible touches way more lives than we tend to realize. And this is not just me speaking. Data backs it up. The Center for Inclusive Design shows that products designed with accessibility in mind can reach up to 4 times as many consumers, not just disabled consumers. Consumers like this guy. A perfectly capable adult who still cannot open a jar of pickles. History proves the same point. Electronic toothbrushes were first designed for people with motor impairments, but today they're used by consumers worldwide and have a market size greater than $3 billion US. In other words, making products and spaces more physically accessible benefits everyone. So why then do companies continue to ignore physical accessibility? It is not because they're evil. It is because making products more physically accessible is hard. It's expensive. It's complex. And frankly, many companies just do not have the resources to solve this problem. But imagine if companies could look at a product and pinpoint where accessibility breaks down. Imagine if companies could explore more accessible design options without blowing up costs or adding complexity. Well, I am so excited to share that my longtime friend and now co-founder, Amol Bhave, and I have built an AI-powered tool to do just that. With the click of a button, packaging designers can upload an image of the product and see where accessibility breaks down. But it does not stop there. Designers can view and apply accessibility improvements to the product in real time, that too in 3D. Teams can also compare the original and improved versions of the product side by side, like this easy-to-open tear strip on top of this cereal box on the left. Or this easy-to-pour spout on top of this cereal box on the left. Best of all, designers can view manufacturing costs to make informed design decisions and watch as accessibility scores rise in real time. But building this technology alone is not enough. Accessibility only matters when it is embedded into the real physical world, into the products we touch and the spaces we move through. However, to build this more accessible world where everyone can open doors, jars, and opportunities, we need leaders like yourselves to step up. So my ask today is simple. When you leave this room, I hope you begin to see the physical world differently. Notice the objects you touch and the spaces you move through. Ask if they were designed to include the people you love, like your aging grandmother with arthritis, or your friend that tore his ACL. And when you encounter a product or space that is hard to use, say something. Leave a review, even when no one offers you a gift card or a chance to win a cool prize. Because when you voice a concern, you're not just speaking for yourself. You may be advocating for millions of others with and without disabilities. I am committed to making this world a reality. The question is, will you help build it with me? Thank you.